Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you can be alerted when new content is released. Enjoy the video.
We're doing this really to close the gap between science and spirituality.
Yes.
If transformation is happening and we're seeing biological effects, then there should be something happening in real time that we should be able to measure. And we're starting to measure that, and energetic changes in people's field and energetic alignments in their energy centers or chakras. We saw dramatic shifts in that. So this process was just a hypothesis for me, because I figured, what the heck, I mean, we're getting the results. We're seeing medical feedback, from scans and blood tests, et cetera, et cetera. We get emails, and of course, the first line in every email is, "You're not going to believe this," which we love. We know that, and it's coming next. So because of that, we want to be able to show that there's coherence going on in the brain, that both hemispheres are firing in unison, that there's phase synchronization going on, the amplitudes are healthy, and the brain is working in a different ratio between our thinking brain and our subconscious brain. And these people were, without a doubt, really doing some amazing things. My current theory about love, that psychic union that transcends words, is when you have a union of polarity. When both hemispheres are no longer judging good and bad, right and wrong, positive and negative, male and female, past and future. When both brains begin to work in coherence, and you see this kind of orderliness that's going on between both hemispheres, that type of psychic orderliness or coherence is the union of those two specific things, and the brain is functioning in a state of wholeness. And the only thing you could say is you feel whole and complete, and all the things that you thought you wanted, you no longer want, because in order for you to want, you would have to be polarized again. We want people to be able to open their eyes and be able to have this level of unconditional state of joy inside of them, that they no longer need the sports car or the boat or the gambling to try to create a change in their feeling by using something outside of them. And that really is when true joy and happiness is created. And we started seeing some of that. Spontaneous healing happens as a result, because the disease actually exists in the old personality. It doesn't exist in the new personality. The person is literally, chemically, neurologically, and genetically somebody else. And they don't have to visualize the cancer. We've been hypnotized into believing that you need a reason for joy, that you need a reason to give thanks. That's the Newtonian model of reality, of cause and effect. Wait for something outside of you to change how you feel inside of you. And when you feel differently inside of you, you pay attention to who caused it outside of you. That's how we associate with our environment. That's cause and effect. Quantum model of reality is the opposite. It's about causing an effect. It's changing how you think and feel and giving thanks ahead of the actual event, so much so that your body, as the unconscious mind, begins to believe the event has already happened, because the emotional signature of gratitude means it's already happened or it is happening to you. And the moment you get to that level of gratitude, true gratitude, not an intellectual process, but you begin to feel it, your body does not know the difference, and you're literally switching on new genes in new ways, and you begin to know certain things about who you're being. And those elevated emotions then carry a different frequency, and you become more energy, more mind, less matter. The culture is really the reflection of how people survive in a certain environmental condition. And so different people in different parts of the world have different cultures based on the food they grow, whether they're near water, their altitude, how they commingle, etc., etc. The 21st century and the 20th century has been the indoctrination into this belief that we need something outside of us to make us happy, and that the events that have occurred over the last couple hundred years are still alive in a lot of cultures' minds. And those beliefs, some of them support the evolution of a culture, and others really restrict the expansion of a culture. And a belief is just a thought you keep thinking over and over again. That's it. And so if you have a belief that germs make you sick, if you have a belief that women are less than men, if you have a belief that spirituality looks a certain way, and you conform to those beliefs, they limit the flow of the divine through individuals because it separates them from their true nature and independent of a person's culture, their tradition, their religion, their gender, their social status, their race, that there's an intelligence that's giving them life. That divine intelligence transcends all of those things. So this is a time in history where all of those separate isms are beginning to collapse. The political model, the economic model, the educational model,
scientific models,
the religious model, there's the environment. You're starting to see a collapse of these so-called structures because information is so readily available. And so because you can research anything now, you have it. I used to have to go to the library and pull these massive books off the shelf and sit in a room and fumble through all these pages. And you could, at your very fingertips, look at the medical model. 25 years ago you were diagnosed with a condition, the doctor told you needed this procedure, you signed on the dotted line and it was over. Fast forward to today, the doctor tells you have a condition. You go on the internet for the next 2 days and you research it better and you know more about that condition than your doctor.
Right.
And you say to your doctor, well, I want to try this new procedure. And the doctor says, well, I don't know anything about that, or that's not going to work. And you say, really, time to find a new doctor. Because people are now wanting to empower themselves with information. So, classic time in history, because the traditional models that are based on the past have nothing to do with a new future. And so, waking up to this time right now is really saying to every individual, if you want peace in the world, you better not be arguing with your neighbor, because you have to demonstrate peace everywhere in your life. If you have a problem with a war or the government taking things, start giving. You have to demonstrate all of that. And when you do, you give people permission to do the same in their lives. So because of globalization, there's a collapse going on in a lot of these social structures and really giving people permission to step outside of them. And I think it's a really healthy time to be alive. And memories are just thoughts that stay in the brain. And if you keep firing and wiring the same circuits, you begin to cause long-term relationships. Learning is making new connections. Remembering is maintaining them. So then if we keep the same level of mind going every single day, then our brain literally is keeping those circuits in place. Now, there's nothing wrong with remembering the experience. But if you can remember the experience without the emotional charge,
well, see, now that's the key,
then you are free from the experience. Look at Nelson Mandela.
Yes.
Great, one of my heroes.
Yes.
And why do I love him?
Perfect example.
27 years in prison, okay? First 10 years of his life, he hated. He was angry. And he said to himself every day, I'm never going to get out of here. And he did it for 10 years. Yeah. And finally he paused and he said, what if I could get out of here? What if I could get out of here? And he started thinking the what if question. Now he was stepping outside of his environment and his culture. And he was willing to make a difference. So he starts thinking about what could I do to get out of here. All of a sudden he gets this idea, I'm going to start writing letters to the United States. So every week he wrote letters and wrote more letters on apartheid, and finally he started gaining a lot of political attention. And then he was standing outside of his cell one day and he thought, who's going to lead this nation? Who is going to lead this nation? And of course the next thought is, I wonder if I could lead this nation. Now here's the key point. He said, what would I have to change about myself to be a leader of this nation? Now
that's a profound.
Is where you've got to leave bitterness behind.
Yes.
You have to leave betrayal and hatred behind. Yes. You have to leave anger and judgment, prejudice. You have to leave all of that, holding grudges.
Yes.
In 27 years in the crucible, he took base metals, those survival emotions, and turned them into gold. And because he transmuted those emotions, there isn't an ounce of malice in that man's body. He gets to lead a nation. So then we're defined by our adversity. And when we can look at the emotion and really realize that that emotion is the residue from the past, then when we begin to say, this emotion then, and these behaviors, and these habits, and these attitudes don't belong to the ideal self in the future. And you begin to observe them. Look, the fact that you're observing the self means that you're no longer the program, but you're the consciousness observing the program.
Yes.
That's when you begin to objectify the subjective self. This is when you begin to detach from the programs, and that's the first step to change.